Welcome to GeekDIYMechanic. The purpose of this video is to discuss scan tool features and maybe help you determine what level of scanner would be good for you. I remember when I was first starting out, this was one of my biggest dilemmas, because you really do need to communicate with the automobile's onboard computer to access the valuable information in it, from trouble codes to PIDs, parameter IDs. That would be like throttle position sensor, current oxygen sensor reading, things like that. So let's start our discussion. Let's go to knowledge, tools, equipment, scan tool features. So OBD2 standard from 96 on allows you to get at generic codes. In that specification, they mandated all manufacturers give you a specific set of parameter IDs, a list of trouble codes, common trouble codes that a normal car will have, and they'll map into it. So a lean code in a Ford will also show up for a Chevy, as in for a Toyota, as in for a Nissan. In addition, each manufacturer, maybe even make, model, year, can have its own specific manufacturer PIDs, because each car manufacturer has their own implementation. They need their own PIDs. For example, one car may have two O2s and another car has air fuel. Another may have dual cats or whatever. So they have their own implementation, so they can have their own set of PIDs. So that's in addition, when you do have a trouble code, diagnostic trouble code, there's freeze frame data associated to it, so that you can get a snapshot of the environment, and it's in the generic area only, the list of parameters dictated by the OBD2 standard that they must provide when a trouble code is triggered. So again, you have generic trouble codes, manufacturer specific trouble codes, freeze frame data. You also have manufacturer specific parameters. The next list of functionality a scan tool can do is clear a specific trouble code. Again, you always want to find the true root cause to what caused the trouble code, fix it. It says some trouble codes don't auto clear, so you'd have to fix root cause, clear the code, make sure you go through some readiness test, but that's in another discussion what that means. But let's assume it runs through a list of tests, and when they all pass, then you won't have any trouble codes. Lastly, higher end scan tools allow you to talk back to the computer. So up to this point, you were pulling information from the car's computer. Bidirectional allows you to send commands to the car's computer. Why would you do that? Primarily it's for diagnostics and testing. Let's say you want to make sure the idle air control valve is working. There is a functional test you can do while the car is running and change the position or duty cycle or whatever the manufacturer has set up to allow you to control that idle air control valve and make sure it is working. So at a high level, those are the functionality a scan tool can do. And let's go to levels that I have created to see how they map out. So let's start first off, since we've already went through this feature list. The only thing I didn't cover is down here, these two, in that some scan tools, high-end professional scan tools, have a database of testing information, how to test it, pinouts, the waveform, expected waveform of the sensor, and trouble code high probability fixes. So you would have access to other professionals' information. So when let's say you have a specific car, make, model, you get a lean code or injector issue or ignition coil issue, they will list what the high probability of what the fixes in the field were to that trouble code. So at least it helps you know what areas to look at, because each car might have a specific trouble area that causes that code, and if you don't have that, you sort of have to go through the whole gamut of tests, whereas this can save you time. That's why a professional would be willing to pay the probably a yearly charge for that benefit. It allows them to get in and out of a vehicle quickly. Okay, so now let's go across the levels. A consumer might just want to be able to simply pull codes so that when they go into the dealer they can sort of be pre-studied. All the other ones here are in some way trying to resolve trouble codes or issues. It's just the level is how complicated and how detailed the diagnostic would be for that issue, and maybe the fix. Let's say it's dropping the transmission or dropping the clutch or dropping the rear end or changing out the vehicle speed sensor. Some of those are pretty tucked away underneath the car. So that's the level. That's what these represent. How deep, how much time you want to spend learning the subject, tools, weekends you want to give up. To be honest, the advanced tends to have very close to the professional, and you can tell, because they just love the hobby. They may maybe even get paid for doing a job. And then what do they do with that money? It goes right back into their hobby, maybe buying the tool that will allow them to work on a broader set of cars, or to make that job, buy a specialty tool for that job they just did for you or someone else. They buy the specialty tool so the next time they do it a little quicker, or it can help diagnose it quicker. One thing, another thing, we'll go through feature level. Again, the top two here are displaying the parameter IDs in a value. So let's go through that. This better explains it. So you can look at the injector pulse width textually, and some sensors don't change very much. Actually, injector pulse width would be something you'd actually want to graph, but let's just talk about text, like engine coolant temperature, ambient air temperature, things of those natures. They don't change a whole lot, those sensors, their values. So you don't really need a graph. You can just look at it textually. But sensors that change frequently, we'll pick like the O2 sensor or air fuel, that are constantly changing. It'd be nice to view those values over time. So that is what's meant by looking at a PID graphically. In addition, many times you're doing a test for which you look at the graph to see if your particular sensor passed the test. For example, in this graph, I did a snap to wide open throttle for the air fuel sensor on a Toyota, and this is the correct waveform. It went rich to lean and settled back out to 14.7 to 1 air fuel ratio. So again, that's what's meant by textually displaying the PIDs and graphically displaying the PIDs. So these first two are displaying the PIDs. The next two are graphically displaying the PIDs. The next level is displaying and clearing trouble codes. Bidirectional control, the intermediate and advanced and obviously professional, may want to run specific tests to see if a specific sensor is working correctly, maybe an EVAP or EGR or idle air control valve that I gave an example before. O-scope. That maybe seem out of place when you're talking about scanners. Actually not, because you could be looking, let's say the throttle position sensor, what the computer is sensing. So you're looking at the throttle position PID on your scanner. And it'd be nice if on that same scanner you can have another window that shows the back probe voltage value of the throttle. That way you could see if they match. Maybe it's a substituted parameter. Again, Scanner Danner videos can talk about substituted values. Or you have a wiring issue going back to the computer that is not allowing the signal to be clean. Maybe it's resistant or it's not there at all, so it's either high or low. So that's why sometimes it's nice to have alongside the O-scope along with the displaying graphed PID. As for me, I have a separate scope meter and scan tool. And lastly, the sensor testing information and trouble code fixes. A lot of times when I get an update to my scan tool, I'll get a year free of that, and it's actually quite informative. A lot of times my friends will call me, I'll immediately jump online if I have that subscription and tell them potential areas that could cause that issue, and it saves them a great deal of time. I might even be able to help them save money. Let's say they don't want to fix their car but they want to take it in. I can tell them probably where the areas, that way if the mechanic says something not matching what probably the areas, they can say, you know what, I'd like a second opinion or whatever. In my opinion, if you're gonna really start working on cars, you really intend to become a high intermediate or advanced, I would spend the money and buy a good scan tool. O-scope, not necessarily, but maybe all the way to bidirectional control. How much would that be? You can get PC-based scan tools, or you can get standalone scan tools. I prefer the standalone. There's nothing wrong with PC-based. To me, the reason I don't like it is a lot of times I go to my friend's house because the car's not running. So if I had to take a PC, I know you can put on a laptop. Again, it's my preference. Either way, you're going to spend maybe upwards of maybe $1,000 to $3,000. If you have one car, that may be hard to justify. I work on a lot of my friends' cars, word of mouth, and my cars, so I justified buying that. Again, justified's in my mind, right? But I'm just letting you know, because having the more advanced scan tool allows you to sort of grow into things. And if you ever can get access to like sensor testing information or specific trouble code fixes, it really changes your view on things. I'll show you. I have an older Snap-on Vantage. I'll show you what I mean by that. It goes up to 2004. But anyway, I'll in future video I'll show you what it will let you see. And it's just valuable. It shows you pinouts of the sensor, shows you what values you should get when you back probe it, run a specific test, make sure the waveform looks like that. It sort of helps you learn how to diagnose. So that's why I looked at having the more advanced scan tool as not only a tool, but it also teaches me how to use it, because the higher end tool you get will also have probably either a nice manual or access to at least forums in their website, and those tend to be more professional level forums, not, hey, let's go change this sensor. No, they're going to say, oh, I ran this test, this should be the waveform, or run this test and this should be what the resultant PID should look like. something like that. Again, this is just my opinion. If you plan to stay consumer and beginner and just try to do the simple stuff, you might be able to get away with maybe a $500 one. I stay at the $500 range because graphing to me is important. I used to just have textual and thought I was just great. And then once I got an advanced problem, I was like, I can't see it because the values were changing so fast, it just said lean. And then when I got a graph, I went, oh, I'm going high lean. I have no issue here. It's somewhere else. So that's just my suggestion. Again, now that you understand functionality, you can shop online, understand and look at what they offer you, and you can maybe map to what you need and to your skill level and where you want to end up. This concludes this video. I hope you found it very helpful and useful. I wish someone would have given me this information when I was shopping around and when I started. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the information helpful.